Hey, I'm Todd. Thanks for choosing to watch my video, and if you would subscribe it, like it, all that stuff, that'd be great. Otherwise, enjoy the video, and I hope it gives you the information you need and is helpful to you. Take care. Doing a front brake pad replacement and rotor replacement on a 2008 Ford Escape. The wheel off, so you break the lug nuts loose, probably 19 millimeter. Everything is left to loosen, right to tighten. So break the lug nuts loose, a turn or two, then go ahead and jack up the vehicle. There's a nice pinch weld here, nice piece of metal here. This is not exactly in the middle. Maybe leave that alone. This is pretty far under, but if you can get here, you can maybe jack up the front end so you can have the whole front end off the ground. Otherwise, you can do one side at a time, of course. Once you've jacked it up and get your safety stands, then you can go ahead and take the lug nuts off the rest of the way, pull the wheel off, and get your brake rotor, outer brake pad, inner brake pad, brake caliper mount. A couple little caps in the back. Pop those off, get to your 9 millimeter bolts right here, at least on this vehicle. I often say it doesn't really matter bolt sizes because they do change, and if you get aftermarket calipers, they might change as well. So, got 2 bolts to take off. Like to collapse the piston though and make sure the pistons and the slides are okay. I've already done it, but I get a screwdriver in here. And pry over. Then you get a screwdriver in that gap there. And pry some more. And make sure your calipers slide. These are a little stiff, but they're probably going to be fine with a little cleaning and lubricating, so that's something to be looking out for. And you might realize there's a problem if your brake pads are fatter or thinner when you compare them to each other. So be aware of that. If one's really thin and one's really thick, you could have a caliper issue and might just be a good idea to replace it. At this time it's probably 11 years old in this year, but if you're watching this video in a few more years, it's even older, so you might consider just replacing the caliper, which would be a different video. So that's this little tension bar. We can take this off. I usually hook it in here like this, and then I pull this down, put it on the lower edge. And that's putting it on. And sometimes, not always, we don't have the best luck with the aftermarket ones. For some reason, they don't want to stay on in place, so maybe hang on to the original one and maybe just continue to use that. So you got the bolts loose. We'll probably be able to take the caliper off. Use a channel locks or a large C-clamp, and you can collapse this all the rest of the way. Take our outer brake pad off. We're replacing these brakes because we have a brake pedal pulsation issue and steering wheel shaking. So the rotor is going back and forth, pushing the fluid back through the system, causing the brake pedal to pulse. These just fit in with a friction fit. And we have two 19mm bolts holding the bracket on. And again, left to loosen, right to tighten. We'll zip those off with a gun. Kind of see the contact points here on it with the rust. You can clean those points up with the emery cloth or maybe a little filing or something, whatever you got available. Clean them up, wipe them down. They don't come lubed from the factory, but go ahead and you can put a little bit of your brake caliper lube you may have and put it on the spots where the brake pad rubs on the caliper mount. Take that off, then the rotor will slide off. If it doesn't, you can certainly tap it off with a hammer. Probably a few times it should come loose, get it machined, or replace it. I'm going to use a gun, but you of course can use a 1/2-inch breaker bar and 19mm. Take these off and wipe them down, clean them up so they're smooth again. Your wire brush or emery cloth, just some brake clean, and a rag will probably do the trick. And then we can use some caliper lube and work it in here on both sides. Get ready for reinstallation. So that is removing your brake pads and rotor on your Ford Escape. When you get your parts, make sure you match them up, the new ones with the old one. Make sure they look the same. And the rotors, make sure it's the same height. And lay them down. Make sure that's about the same right there. Be darn close. Even 3mm could make a difference on these as far as made wrong and causing you headaches, because we have run into that in the last couple months. This has got a coating on it for rust and salt and all that kind of stuff, so there's no cleaning needed. This slides right on. If you get a rotor that has a little oily coating on it for rust protection, then you need to wash that off with some warm soap and water. A little handy to hold that in place there so it's not rocking around, makes it a little easier to put the bracket on. Again, if it doesn't have this protective coating, should tell you in the box, then you need to wash it with some warm soap and water and then dry it off with a paper towel. You should be good to go. Took this and put some caliper lube on the spots where the pads ride. You can also just put it on the pad ends as well. Try and start all nuts and bolts by hand always. Makes things easier, no cross threading. And tighten these to about 129. And probably 18mm bolts. Also slab some lubricant in both of the holes there for the slides. Got the slides in place. Collapse the piston. Ready to go. I do just start all bolts by hand, but I'm going to use this to get these bolts started with the slides because there's a little stiffness to them. Those are 37 foot-pounds. New item here, spring. You'll notice there's a little groove in here for those little fingers to grab. That is replacing your front brake pads and rotors on your 2008 and other model years Ford Escape, other Fords. You look inside your wheel through the rims, or you could take your wheel off, and if you see this, it's probably going to work for you. Put your tire on, tighten them in a crisscross pattern, as tight as you can, reasonably tight. Up in the air, then lower it down, torque them to 100 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. Go ahead and top off your master cylinder as we talked about and showed previously, and you'll be good to go. Pump the brakes a few times before you let anyone take it, or finish topping off the brake fluid. Alright, so we are jumping to the master cylinder on the 2008, and I'm sure other model years Ford Escape master cylinder here. Have a cap, just twists off basically. It's got what, 3 notches on it, fits on the notches there. Minimum and maximum on here. Just keep an eye on the level. .3 brake fluid. You don't want it spilling over. Brake fluid can be damaging to paint. Over time it'll peel it. So just keep an eye on the level. Use a turkey baster or a clean rag or something. Absorb it, keep it from overflowing as you're collapsing the pistons. You need to maybe suck a little bit out if you've collapsed and found it's getting up pretty high. So keep an eye on it. When you're all done, brakes are back together, wheels are on. Check your fluid level, pump the brakes a few times to let it be in the level it's supposed to be at, and then top it off or take some out as needed. And we're just above, a little over max right now. I got one more piston to collapse, and so we might take a little bit out, or like I said, we'll just keep an eye on it as we collapse.